All right, so the released JFK files have been out long enough now for people to put them through AI, to have analyzed them, for people to have read them. I mean, 80,000 pages is a lot of documents for sure, but people have been waiting for this for a long time, and there's a lot of people out there that have analyzed the documents. You see the podcasters and everything coming out with some answers, what they found, what they dug up, and it is coming down to the same couple of things, right? And we know that the honest answer is that none of this actually tells us who did what, but it does tell us something very important. We're going to talk about that a little bit today on the Insanity Report for Thursday, the 27th of March, 2025. And again, this is the Insanity Report for today. So, the JFK files. Now, I've been relatively silent about that because I haven't read them. I don't have time to read 80,000 pages. But I know that there's a lot of people out there in internet land who are reading them. Like I said, some people have already put them through AI and asked AI what they think the conclusion is. And AI apparently gives like a percentage chance between, you know, it was this much percent it was Harvey Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald's on his own, and this much percentage chance that the CIA was behind it. And like up till now, nobody's come out with a smoking gun, right? But we're never going to get a smoking gun. How often, and let's think about this for a second, how often do we get a smoking gun in anything, right? Like, most murder cases, let's take murder cases because they're the most egregious, right? Most murder cases get tried, and basically people are convicted on a bunch of circumstantial evidence, right? There's circumstantial evidence that leads them to believe the police and the prosecutors to believe that somebody did something, and then they use that circumstantial evidence, present it, and spin the prosecution and the defense each spin their cases in story mode to a jury that then decides on the guilt or innocence. But never is that really a smoking gun. You know, smoking gun is when you witnessed a person doing something. You know what I mean? If you're there, right, then you have the smoking gun. If you videotaped it, then you can present that smoking gun to other people. Even though nowadays with AI, I don't know how long video evidence is going to be allowable in court if there's no way to like watermark AI-made videos, right? Because that shit's just going to keep getting better and better. And, you know, if they can make any video they want, then it's going to be hard to say if somebody's guilty or innocent based on a video, right? DNA evidence, also completely ununderstandable to any real layperson, right? If you're in a court, right, and they try to explain DNA evidence to you, that you can see if you're like, I'm sure that the eyes glaze over of the people in the jury. So when DNA evidence is used, the jury is relying upon the testimony of the people presenting the evidence. They're not necessarily relying on the evidence because they don't understand the evidence, right? I don't know how DNA works, right? I just assume that if some, and that's wrong, but yeah, that's what people do. They assume that because some guy with doctor in front of his name gets on the stand and says, yes, this person's DNA out of so many 100 million billion people, it was their DNA, you know, so they were there. You know what I mean? They were there, they touched the thing, their prints or their DNA is on the murder weapon or on the victim or whatever the fuck, right? And then the jury just has to trust that that doctor isn't full of shit, right? And even then, a lot of times the doctors are full of shit because they are paid, they are paid to testify by a certain side, right? And so if the defense wants to get a doctor to testify that that DNA evidence is contaminated, then they're going to find a doctor, right, that is going to be willing to say that, right? And the prosecution does the same. They find doctors that say 100%, it's 100 billion to 1, right? It's them. Their DNA was there, you know? And so, look, I'm not questioning how DNA works because I have no idea. I'm not in a position to question that. I don't know, right? But I would have to rely on a doctor I could trust to tell me yes or no. And since we know the way court cases work, a lot of times, even though there seems to be no real better way to get justice at the moment, we know how court cases work. Court cases are dependent, the outcome is kind of dependent on how good the lawyer spins the story, right? It has to be broken down into a believable story for the jury, mixed with a little bit of evidence that also corroborate that story, right? That's kind of the thing. That's kind of the thing that's happening. And so, why do we expect that in the JFK shit that we're going to ever get any kind of smoking gun? Whatever anybody reads in the JFK files, we don't even know if that shit is actually real. Could they have doctored something and put it in there knowing the files were going to get released? Sure. Could they have taken very important documents out of that, renumbered them or whatever? Sure. Could they have just gotten rid of any smoking gun incriminating evidence that points to one person like Lyndon B. Johnson or somebody that gave the call? Apparently they didn't do that, but they could have, right? So all we're waiting for this smoking gun is just going to kill everybody's time. Listen, we know essentially, based on the same kind of evidence that we would get in any other court case, any other murder case. Let's put it this way. If the evidence in the 80,000 pages of the JFK files, right? If that evidence were to be, if the CIA were on trial, right? As a person, right? And they had this amount of evidence pointing to their involvement, they would get convicted of murder. And that's basically all we have. That's the pinnacle of what we will be able to reach. Because again, there's no way for us to verify if any of the documents are actually real. We don't know if the documents have been taken out or added. We don't know if text has been changed. We don't know if things have been removed. We don't know any of that shit. Also, we don't know if the people that wrote these documents back then when the murder of JFK happened were telling the truth. We don't know who they are. None of that shit. We have to completely rely on the authenticity and the honesty of the people involved at the time and the documents we see now. And so never will we ever get a 100% undeniable truth smoking gun type situation. It never happens. Never happens in anything in real life. Like I said, unless you witness something yourself, you don't know for sure if anything really ever happened anywhere. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know for sure. You might be 99% sure. You're just never going to be able to be 100% sure unless you were a personal witness to whatever the fuck it is that's being discussed, right? That's the only way. So basically everything in life that we get on information has a maximum truth capability of like 99%, right? That for us, right? That's it. We're not going to get 100%, and we're not going to get it in the JFK files. Now, that said, it's clear that the CIA, from the documents that in the files, right? It's clear that the CIA had some involvement in this murder. It doesn't matter whether fucking Lee Harvey Oswald pulled the trigger or Mac Wallace, I think his name is, pulled the trigger. That's not really that important. The fact is, those people, either one of them, would have been put up to the murder of JFK by someone else, right? This case is actually, look, if you have a wife, right? There's a couple. They're having money problems. The husband has a big life insurance policy on it. The wife thinks, he's worth more dead than alive. You know what I'm saying? So she hires a murderer, right? She hires a killer, right? She finds out who the killer is, right? I don't know how she's going to find out. Maybe she goes on the dark web or something. She hires a killer, right? She meets with that killer. She provides the gun for the killer and the route to the place where the hit's supposed to take place, right? Now, the husband is dead, and the situation is getting investigated by the prosecution and the cops and all that shit. And they find out that the wife's phone was in the vicinity of the killer's phone, a couple of times. There's no history between these two people. They haven't met before. They're not friends, right? So they have that. Then the wife uses her credit card to buy a gun, and it just happens to be the same kind of gun that was used in the murder. But she has an alibi, right? She was at her mom's house that was 400 miles away at the time. Yeah, so well, that's weird, but she didn't. Where is this gun? She can't produce it, right? So, and then you've got like I said, you got the phones together. You've got her credit card purchasing the weapon. You've got a tape recording with a neighbor saying, yeah, I overheard her talking on the phone to somebody saying she wants her husband killed by tomorrow. You know what I mean? All of those things, if that was the case in this kind of murder case, the wife would be in prison, right? She would be convicted of having her husband murdered. This is the exact same. This is what happened with the Kennedy shit. It's just anybody who looks at it, anybody who's now heard the breakdown of the 80,000 pages, it just is obvious that the CIA certainly had a hand in this murder, right? And that's what everybody wants to know. They want to know, okay, if the mob was involved too, fine. They were also involved. If the mob was involved, they were probably hired by the CIA, right? If everything points to the CIA being behind it, even these documents. So without the smoking gun, it's still enough circumstantial evidence that the CIA was behind a hit on John F. Kennedy for whatever reason, right? Because that's where people get lost as well. They get lost in all these possible reasons. Well, why would the CIA? Right, but the mob had reason too. And so did fucking Cuba, and so did Russia. Yeah, everybody had a reason. Yeah, okay, everybody might have had a reason. But those documents clearly point to all the people that might have a reason, but they clearly point to who had the most involvement. The most involvement was parts of the CIA, right? Do we know if the higher-ups of the CIA were also involved? Do we know if it was a rogue faction of the CIA like that Underwood memo was talking about? Well, no, not yet. We don't. Not yet. I haven't heard anything about that. We don't know that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If the higher-ups were involved and didn't fucking realize in the CIA, where they know everything about everyone, right? And didn't realize there was a rogue faction within their organization getting ready to pop the president, then they were incompetent and should have never been there in the first place. We can't hold anybody accountable for it anymore because everybody's dead, right? So, in my eyes, it's basically case closed on the John F. Kennedy files. Why? Because it's clear, according to all the documents and corroborating evidence and this tape recording between these, I forgot what the guy's name is, but basically saying that Lyndon Johnson wanted to be president, right? Nixon even said to somebody, apparently, right? We don't know that for sure, but apparently said to somebody, both Lyndon Johnson and I wanted to be president. It's just that I wasn't prepared to kill for it, right? There's so many things pointing to Lyndon Johnson and the CIA collaborating on this murder in some way. It would have benefited both of them, right? It would have benefited both of them. Everybody knew that Lyndon Johnson and the John F. Kennedy family hated each other. They had big, big problems, right? Big problems. They hated each other. The CIA also knew that, right? And the CIA kind of wanted Kennedy gone as much as Lyndon Johnson did. And would it be such a stretch to kind of assume that, well, that maybe the CIA faction or the heads of the CIA, whoever was behind it, in the CIA, we know the CIA was behind it. We don't know who in the CIA. Doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. The CIA was clearly behind this hit, right? Everybody said so for decades. Now the evidence comes out that supports that claim. And we're not going to get any closer to a smoking gun than that. Right? Like I said, it's the same kind of evidence we would get in any other murder case. The smoking gun is just not there. Right? So, Lyndon Johnson would have benefited from this because he would become president. Right? Lyndon Johnson, according to everybody that knew him, was a scheming, like, fucking evil motherfucker. Right? The CIA people that were behind this probably hooked up with Lyndon Johnson and they were like, yo, how about this, right? How about, we kill two flies with one stone, right? Or whatever the fuck. Kill two birds with one stone. That's it. And we'll work out something to get rid of this motherfucker. We just need your blessing and make sure that when you become president, there's not like too much of an investigation into this shit. You know what I'm saying? We'll cover it up as best we can. Just make sure the investigation is kind of fucked up. I mean, if there was a way to kill a president, that would be the fucking way. You know what I mean? That would be the way. You've got the new president who's on board with the killing and can make sure that real investigations are probably suppressed in some way, right? Warren Commission, bullshit, right? Just like the fucking commission on the 9/11 commission, bullshit. You know what I mean? And that's how they've been doing shit forever. And so why people are still going, well, there's no conclusive, I mean, we could, that's just, then people are going to be fucking with this forever. Really, it's not, you're not going to get any closer. We have all the info we need.
Fixed camera in 1 kilometer.
It was obviously the CIA that was behind this. And they used possibly, what's his face, the shooter that everybody thinks it is, Lee Harvey Oswald. It could have been Mac Wallace. It probably was Mac Wallace. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares how many shooters there were? Who cares who pulled the trigger? All those people are fucking dead. All we need to know, and I think we know that now, is that the CIA was clearly behind this. I mean, like I said, if you got all this evidence pointing to a murder suspect in court, they'd be gone. You know what I'm saying? They would lose. The judge, their lawyer would say, look, take a fucking plea. Because they're going to nail if we go to trial on this, your ass is toast, right? Your ass is toast. If the CIA was a person that was on trial for murder or was going to be getting ready to go on trial for murder, the CIA's lawyer would say, bitch, take a fucking plea. They've got so much evidence on you, it's 80,000 pages worth, right? So I think we're done with this. Now, that said, let's go to the Epstein Files, right? The Epstein Files, I still am not thinking we're going to get much on the Epstein Files because we haven't so far, even though apparently the FBI offices that were hiding the files from Pam Bondi were raided by Kash Patel and his team, and they got a bunch of these documents. Apparently Trump sent these documents, all the documents, 14 terabytes of shit, to FBI offices around the country, so they've got the documents, but we don't have the documents. And I think that's probably because, it's a lot more sensitive, this shit. The reason why is most of those people are still alive. You just don't want to put these documents out there for the risk of, there were probably a lot of people that Jeffrey Epstein knew that never fucked any kids, right? They knew him, they visited him on his island or at his house in Manhattan or anywhere, a ranch in wherever the fuck New Mexico it is, wherever it is. They probably visited him and had no idea he was a sex trafficking maniac, right? There's probably lots of people like that. Now, what you don't want is for those people to get caught up in this drama that it just looks like they're like pedophiles, even though they had nothing to do with this shit. So I think what I said before in my other video, I think the Trump administration and Trump himself spoke too soon, stepped on his dick, right? When he said, yeah, we're going to release it all to the people, because they can't really do that. Most of these people are still alive. You'll also fuck up potential prosecutions if it gets tainted in the media some way and you don't do that shit quietly. So the move to send the documents to the FBI offices around the country is the right thing. Because now investigations are being held against these people. They're going through the 14 terabytes of info. FBI offices around the country are going through these files, and they're going to find people that are worth investigating. These investigations are going to take some time. I'm very impatient what accountability is concerned. I'll admit it. You know what I'm saying? I love everything the Trump administration is doing. I love the disruption. I love the fact that they're not taking any shit from rogue-ass stupid judges. I love it that they have balls. I love it that they're tearing down the fucking grift for the Democrats, the USAID bullshit and all the fucking trans ideology crap people are spending money on. I love it that they banned men from women's sport. I love everything they're doing, right? The accountability part is going too slow for me. I think everybody feels that way. A lot of people feel that way. Like, all right, when are we going to start seeing some fucking arrests, right? I think they are coming. I just think we are too impatient. Let it ride, right? Just last week or so, or 2 weeks ago, Trump sent these 14 terabytes of documents to FBI offices around the country and told them, go investigate what's worth investigating. Bring us cases. And that's what they're busy doing, right? Which is what they should be doing. And I think that's a better move than releasing the whole shit to the public and saying, well, you guys have fun with that, when we can't do shit about it. All we can do is read it and bitch about it on the internet, but we can't really arrest people, we can't prosecute people, nothing. It doesn't make sense to do it the other way around. It makes more sense to do it like this, right? So let them go, give them a chance, let's see what happens. I think we're going to start finding out Jeffrey Epstein information through prosecutions that happen based on the information that these FBI officers around the country have. I think that's what we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get a giant trove of files about it. Not until all the prosecutions and all the shit are exhausted. That's what I think. All right, guys, if you want to get all my stuff directly delivered to your inbox, all you got to do is subscribe to my Substack at itsallaboutlogic.substack.com. Itsallaboutlogic.substack.com. Subscribe there for free or for $5 a month to support me, and then you get all of my content, because there, nothing gets deleted. My articles stay up, my videos stay up. There's no bans, there's no shadow bans, there's none of that. You'll get it right in your inbox as soon as I publish it. Go for that, and have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.